Good afternoon and welcome to the December 15, 2021 regular meeting of the Gates County Board of Commissioners. I am Dr. Althea Riddick, the 2021 Chair of the Board. I am joined this evening by Commissioner Jack Owens, Vice Chair, Commissioner Linda Hoffler, Commissioner Ray Freeman, Commissioner Jonathan Craddock, County Manager Tim Wilson, County Attorney Pitt Godwin, and Clerk to the Board, Julissa Chestnut. I now ask Commissioner Craddock to lead us in prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening to say thank you. Thank you for this day that you have made, and let us rejoice and be glad in it. Father God, we ask you to be with the storm victims in Kentucky and the surrounding areas. Father God, we pray that you will seal the mouth of Satan and leave his ears wide open so he can only hear your holy word. Mm-hmm. Father, we ask your presence in this meeting tonight. Lead, guide, and direct us to do your will for the best of this county and the citizens that live within. These things we ask in your Son's name, the name above all names, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the clerk will ask for nominations of election of officers to serve as chairman to the board.
Do you all have a nomination?
I would like to nominate Althea Riddick for chair.
Can I get a showing of hands and it follow in a motion?
I'll second that motion, Madam Clerk.
Can I get a showing of hands?
As a vote?
Is a vote?
Yes.
Affirmative?
That's a vote. Affirmative. Thank you. Can I get a nominee for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Ms. Linda Hoffler.
And I'll second that motion, Madam Chairman.
Can I get a showing of hands by a vote
To vote.
to vote for Linda Hoffler as vice chair? Thank you. And I'm going to turn the meeting back over to our chair, Dr. Riddick.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is the Board of Commissioners meeting schedule. That's in your packet. It's behind your agenda. Take a look at that.
Madam Chair, I have a little, I think December meeting, because that is an election year, that general statutes require us to meet on the first Monday of the month, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's correct.
I don't know. The only thing staff did, we bumped it up an extra week than what it usually was because it was so close to the Christmas holiday.
But I think the general statute said, because it's an election year, that the new board has to be seated
First Monday.
the first Monday in the month.
Okay.
It's North Carolina's general statute.
Okay, North Carolina general statute.
What's that date?
Oh, gosh.
Does anybody have a calendar? Third? Is it December the 3rd?
Oh, I thought somebody had said it.
So December 3rd of 2022? Instead of the 14th?
No, isn't it the 5th? December comes in on Thursday?
The first Monday would be December 5th.
Yeah.
Okay. December 5th, 2022. Okay. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board as far as adopting the calendar? Do I have a motion?
I make the motion that we adopt the meeting schedule for Board of Commissioners for 2022.
I'll second.
Okay, properly motion and second that we adopt the meeting calendar for 2022. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next is committee appointments. They're also in your packet. Let's see. And while you're looking at those, I know we know what committees we are on. We have a new board member, Mr. Craddock. You have the list before you of all the boards, and on the second handout is the assignments, who sit on these boards and committees.
Madam Chair, certainly Commissioner Craddock needs to have the joy of being on some of these committees. I'll be most happy about the Consortium and Northeast Workforce Development Board, and I will say it doesn't meet a lot, Jonathan, but it is about businesses and the training of staff, getting people to work and all that, and I think that would be a natural fit for you.
I'm going to allow y'all to speak about, realigning, or if it's something you're working on that you want to see do through, because just for 1 year, Jonathan, we serve for 1 year on these boards. So,
And I noticed that the Medical Transport Board is vacant, Madam Chairman.
I think that's been vacant for years. I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what that, Jack, do you know what that board is?
I think what that is it meets on a needs basis kind of thing. It's dealing with, if I remember correctly, it's been a long time since it met. Say a group wanted to come in and be a new medical transport, and they had to have an enterprise. It requires an enterprise. But I can tell you history-wise, we've not allowed anyone to come in. There's been some requests, and the reason we did that was to protect our rescue squad, because if they had to share the pie any, it would hurt their revenue. So it's there. I think we're required to have it.
Okay. Okay.
I think if there was a request, we would probably assign somebody to research it, and then, because it would require public hearing, all that stuff. Yeah. It's been a long time, I believe, since they met.
So Commissioner Craddock, you want to try to figure that out for us as well?
Sure.
Now, we don't want Commissioner Craddock to be overloaded in his first year, but we do want him to get a taste of what he's in for. So I have an ad hoc committee that I want him to, I'm going to request that he serve on. Last year, or this year, we had an ad hoc committee to look at the water department. We had Commissioner Owens and Commissioner Hopper to do that. I want to do the same thing. I think we need to do the same thing with broadband. Within the next 3 months, there's going to be a regional broadband committee that's going to serve the region. We're now regionalized as far as how we're going to attack providing broadband and funding it. That committee is going to set like regional. We need a committee that feeds it for our uniqueness, so we make sure we have a voice on that committee. And I'm going to be on the board with you, on the committee with you, because I'm the one that's been shepherding this from day one with the county manager. But as we regionalize and we get ourselves together with the other 5 counties, we want to make sure that Gates County is represented locally, have some voices that we can come back and say, this is what's going on, and what do you think, to the full board, so the full board has a voice as well. So that's how I see it working. It may evolve over time. especially since they have not gotten themselves to that point, but they're just about there as far as developing that regional, it's going to be called the Broadband Action Task Force, BAT, like Batman and Robin. So I think that's cool, but anyway, that's what they said they're going to call it. So anyway, I've asked Commissioner Craddock, would he serve with me on broadband?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, when I looked at the, where is it? I know what's up here. Oh, the Gates County Personnel Board, according to the ordinance, we talked about the ordinance that we're going to rescind once we get the personnel policy tweaked and adopted. According to the ordinance, the Personnel Board has two positions that are detailed in there. That's the county manager and the chair. But we have to have another person, but that person has to be voted on by the full board in January, our first full meeting. So we looked at the ordinance, I called the county manager, because we want to stay legal, we want to make sure we're doing everything we're supposed to do correctly under that ordinance. So it's the county manager and the chair, and then one more member on the board, which the full board will, say, just like we just did for the chair and the vice chair, and vote on that person to be that third person on that personnel board. Okay, once we get the personnel policy, that board goes away. Okay, so that's how that works. I've researched it, checked on it, talked. What are you doing? Talk.
I'll behave.
We talked to the county. Don't y'all start. The county manager about it to make sure that we were doing it correctly. So that's going to be on hold until January when we come back in January. And we'll get that board straight. Okay? Are there any other adjustments to the committee assignments that you can see that we need?
Madam Chairman, no adjustments. However, there's also the Trillium Board, and I sit on that.
Trillium? Okay, you sure do sit on the Trillium Board. Is that under, because you serve the Albemarle Regional Health Services Board of Health, is that?
I spoke with Trillium today, and they advised me that, yes, Mr. Freeman does sit on that
Oh, I know he
board.
sits on the board, I just don't see it. Yeah, he sits on the board.
It is different. It deals with 1073 or mental patients primarily and those that need some attention for some of their disabilities from the mental aspect. And we have a regional board. We sit in Hosky or Williamston, depending upon where the regional board is going to meet.
Okay, so we'll ask the clerk to add that board to our list of boards and committees. Any other adjustments to the committee structure? Okay, let's see. So I need a motion to approve the committee structures for 2022.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Now we get to the approval of agenda. We need to amend the agenda to include opiate. We just finished talking about Trillium. We have an opportunity with all the other states to hopefully receive funding from a lawsuit that was filed federally and state. And we have to get the resolution in on this meeting because it's supposed to be there before our next meeting, which is in January. So I had to call the county attorney to research it. He got it to us in time. That's on your desk in front of you. So I need a motion to amend the agenda to put that on the agenda,
Under new business,
under new business.
I make a motion that we put the opioid information on under new business, item C.
Opiate resolution.
I second the motion.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Second on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. I also spoke with the county attorney this week about a part-time grant writer to get us ready for the housing grant that's going to be due in January, the end of January. We've had those grants before. URP 22, that's the name of the next one, the house repair, home repair. And we apply every year. Last year we didn't get it, but we need to apply because we have citizens that need home repair. And so we have to approve the grant writer, the part-time grant writer, who would be River Green Holly. She wrote the last one, to write that grant for us in January and get it in before the due date, which is, I think, is January 31st. And this is the only minute we can do that. So I talked with the county manager, and it's nominal as far as the fee that would be charged to write that grant. So we need to amend that, put that on new business also. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to add housing grant. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That will be D. A, B, C, D. Okay. Now we have the consent agenda. Take a look at the consent agenda. Is there anything that needs to be removed for discussion?
I did not see anything in the packet, Madam Chairman, so I would make a motion that we move on the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Consent agenda approved. Write that down. Citizen comments. Madam Clerk.
We have Ms. Emily Truman, subject miscellaneous.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Ms. Emily Truman from Gatesville. I wanted to first give credit where it's due and thank you as a county employee for the lunch that you all provided today for your employees. It was appreciated. Moving on to that, I've spent the past several weeks communicating with people within our community and also people that are coworkers of mine or coworkers through being a county employee. I wish I had time in 5 minutes to bring forth everything that was brought to me and that was mentioned to me and asked that I bring to you guys, but I don't have enough time for that. So I have chosen the ones that were mentioned the most frequently between the citizens and the employees. It was asked that we come to you with the issues so that maybe you have the opportunity to correct them. So that's the approach we're going to take. The first is the meeting time. That was mentioned vastly by, I would venture to say, close to 36 people that I spoke to in the past month. 5:30 does not allow someone that works to be here. The meetings used to be at 6:30 in the evenings. It allowed a lot more people the opportunity to get home from work and to attend the meeting. Most businesses close between 5 and 5:30. That's not acceptable. Our own offices in the county close at 5 or 5:30. It's not acceptable. For a county to be able to come and represent themselves to you, they would have to have a time appropriate for them. So we ask that you take that into consideration. I know that the calendar has already been voted upon, but the time is an issue with most people I've spoken to. I've also had something brought to me that I personally had not considered because I don't have it, as an issue for me, but handicap accessibility to these meetings. I've had a couple say that they don't come because while there is an elevator, it's uncomfortable for them if they have to leave early or get up and go to the restroom because they have to then interrupt this meeting to walk through on camera to go back behind you all to access the elevator in order to get in or out. And they said that that was an uncomfortable situation for them. So I said that I would address it and bring it to you. Another issue that was brought forth was community involvement. It's been mentioned multiple times that they hear you all about your boards and such that you're on, but no one actually sees many of you involved in our community. So I ask you to ask yourselves, when is the last community function that you have attended that you didn't have to be at as a commissioner? When is the last time you went out and mingled with the citizens? Have a few issues that need to be addressed and maybe just brought to your attention. First off would be multiple payroll discrepancies with multiple employees. including everything from insurance issues, retirement issues, and paperwork for new or change of hires. That's something I would suggest looking into. I also have a letter here, or a 4-point thing that I was asked to bring from the dispatch office. As a coworker with them and in the dispatch office, I wholeheartedly agree with everything that was written here. First, we've been asking for a secondary exit door, which we still don't have, in case of an emergency, for years. Should we need a quick exit, we would be trapped. It was brought up to the commissioners in a meeting several years ago, and a former commissioner spoke out against it, saying if we had an exit door to the parking lot, that we could walk out in traffic and be hit, referring to the fenced-in parking lot that we currently park in. And we've been using that for years. The second issue is electrical issues. We're there all the time. We can't run out for food. We also can't run the microwave and the coffee pot at the same time, or it blows a fuse. If we happen to be using the microwave at the same time as the clerk's office, which is across the building, it will blow a fuse. The building's old, but is it a hazard? Thirdly, we have asked in the past for 2 new chairs to replace the 2 very worn-out ones that we have now. Keep in mind, someone is sitting in these chairs 24/7, 365 days a year, days, nights, weekends, holidays. I personally have been there for almost 4.5 years, and we've had the same ones. We were told that they didn't have the money to buy us new chairs. And the biggest complaint of all this would be the outdated equipment that we have in dispatch. It shuts down and our screens black out frequently. We have been working for several months at one of our consoles with 2 of our monitors down and completely inoperable. It's pretty hard to answer 911 calls and do our jobs proficiently and effectively when our equipment continues to fail and shut down. It has happened to me numerous times, said the person that wrote this, and I agree with the comment for myself. I would venture to say that all of the dispatchers have had it happen to them, and it has happened to me in the middle of a 911 call. We've been told by our tech that our equipment is obsolete, and eventually it will shut down and not come back up. What happens then? We won't be able to answer emergency calls. It's a disservice to the people of Gates County and anyone that may call 911 needing help. We can't help them if we don't have the proper equipment to do our jobs efficiently. Thank you.
Are there any others? No. Sign up, okay. Administrative reports, departmental reports. Mr. Hill? You're here. Welcome.
Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Commissioner Craddock, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Sorry I wasn't here last month. I was pleased to represent Gates County last month at the North Carolina Assessors Conference in Wilmington. It was a good 3 days of meetings, workshops, and education, and it was the first conference that's been held since COVID-19 started. So it was a good conference and a good turnout, and I appreciate the opportunity for that. And thank you all for lunch today. You should have your tax collector's report for the month of November in your packet. We had a good month in November. November, December are our best months for collections. $2,372 was collected for the month of November. I'm also excited about that because the collection rate is up. We're up 5% over where we were last year, from 43% to 48%. A big part of that is the fees we're receiving from Zacchaeus that we weren't receiving last year. With foreclosures we received last month, almost $15,300 from ZLS. Also, motor vehicle values are staying high, and that's keeping our DMV revenue coming in good. Personal property listing forms will be mailed on the 27th of this month. They need to be signed and returned to the tax office by citizens no later than February the 1st. And the last day to pay taxes without a penalty is January the 5th, 2022. So that's just a friendly reminder from the tax collector.
Friend we don't like to hear.
Can I ask you, what is your schedule for the next 2 weeks?
We are closed the 23rd, the 24th, and then I guess the 27th, that Monday. So Thursday, Friday, and Monday, and then closed New Year's Eve, the 31st.
But you are open Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday after Christmas?
Yes, ma'am. 8:30 to 5. And we do have the drop box. If you don't feel comfortable coming into the office, we've got the drop box at the courthouse parking lot, and we're checking that every hour on the hour. Any other questions?
Any
for me?
other questions, Mr. Hill? Go ahead.
Madam Chairman, yeah, well, it's not really a question, but was there any regulations or anything brought up in your conference about COVID-19 and how to make your office safer or the citizens safer?
No, and I mean, it was kind of nice because it was, kind of business as usual. I mean, we kind of social distanced the best we could, and nobody really wore a face covering, and that wasn't really an issue. So it was kind of nice to kind of have things back to normal. But no, sir, not much was said about COVID besides we were kind of glad to be in the dip again.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Sir.
Thank you.
Finance report. And then we'll go back to the other reports. I saw Kim sitting back there.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have a few updates and upcoming items before I give a brief overview of where we are with the budget for this year. Currently, the finance office, we are looking into procurement cards for the departments instead of just having the one credit card assigned for the county. If you're not familiar with what a procurement card is, it is very similar to a credit card, but these will be assigned to each department with daily limits. And this will help us have more control, and it will be easier to follow when we get our statements. Right now, with the one credit card, if we have several departments that put in requisitions, let's say they're going to order online with Amazon, and if you've ordered online with Amazon, if you have multiple items and they ship at different times, your credit card gets charged when the items ship. So if we have multiple departments getting items, and we may have the requisition in for a total amount, but then you're looking at your credit card statement, it's trying to hunt and pack and find, all right, this one was with this requisition. So by having those assigned with the departments, I think it'll help things to be much smoother, which leads into the item that you guys will get to in a minute on the new business with the resolution for electronic transactions. As I was looking into the procurement cards, I had reached out to some other finance officers to see what policies they had in place so we didn't have to recreate the wheel, if you will, to use some of those items. And it led into there needed to be a resolution in place for electronic transactions. So we can discuss that more in the new business section, but I just wanted to bring that up. That's where that came from. Any questions on the procurement cards?
I wrote down the word purchase orders. We'll be using some form of purchase order with that type of stuff.
Right now, what departments do, they put in requisitions with our accounting system. And there are several approval levels to make sure that there's money in that line item. And then if it's approved, I'm the third approver, it'll generate a purchase order. And then that department head knows, okay, I can go purchase my item or whatnot. So that's what I was referring to with the purchase order. That is the approval that we do have money in the budget for that particular item.
And that would even provide you more of a paper trail?
Yes, we have to, with the general statutes, we have to have pre-audit statements. And on the checks, there is also a disbursement statement. If you've ever actually looked at the physical check, there is a disbursement statement. The purchase order has to have a pre-audit statement. If there's not a pre-audit statement, the transaction is void. I mean, we have not approved that. You get into there are obligated funds that were not approved, so it is a void transaction.
It seems like I've heard for years, and I know some areas that I have been employed in, that the use of a card really saved a lot of time and saved a lot of paper and gave a better paper trail. In our instance, how is that going to work when the budget is what it is? Will you be letting the department head know that this credit card can only be used for X number of dollars or purchase X number of dollars?
Right, once we get through the resolution that the board is approving us to do these electronic online transactions, it still follows the same process, but instead of having, for example, the one credit card where if a department head, they have an approved purchase order, they have to come into the finance office to check out the card. You may need the card, you may need the card, so we have to make sure that the card is available. We've also run into if there are several big purchases, we have a daily limit on our credit card as well. So so it can get kind of tricky trying to schedule everything. But again, we could approve you, and I'm not saying that any employee is doing this. We could approve you for your $500 purchase order, but if that credit card limit is much higher than that and you have it, essentially somebody could spend what they could spend as that upper limit, whereas this would be a smaller amount, and the departments wouldn't have to come into the finance office necessarily to check out their card. We just have to get through that first resolution as a housekeeping piece, and then look into, all right, what are the policies? There has to be training for personnel here for this. So there's several steps we have to put into place, but this is just, I just wanted to update you guys on, we are looking into this. I know other counties use procurement cards as well.
What I'm familiar with is a corporate card, which would be the same. The employee actually fills out the statements for you, has the purchase order number on it, and that's the right we're looking to go.
Correct. So the department head, or however we, once we get to that point, or we're looking at the policy, yes, people will have to sign off before they even get these cards to understand they will be accountable, if you use it for personal. Again, I'm not saying that that's happening here, but you have to have these things in place as internal controls. They will be responsible for reconciling it monthly before they turn it in. They have to have the receipts with it. We just have to kind of work out the process, or what works best. We don't want to make it so cumbersome, but we need to make sure that we have all the internal controls in place for that.
And I know during inclement weather situations or emergency situations, there have been, if you will, bumps and grinds, either not being able to purchase something during that period of time because either
Right.
employee's not at work or it's a weekend or whatever. Would this be able to eliminate that? Are you looking, would they still be able to get to a card to do something, or?
Yes, it would be assigned to that department.
So they
it-
wouldn't have to go to finance? In other words, if nobody was in finance, for instance?
Correct.
They would have a card, okay.
we have to just think about when we're looking at our policies to make sure that there are internal controls in place and that people understand they can be held accountable for misuse of this particular card. But I do think that will solve a lot of some of these issues that we're having. Again, we just need to make sure we have all of our policy and internal controls into place first before we just say, here, take this card.
Yes, ma'am.
And we'll figure it out after. Any other questions for the procurement card?
All right.
The next update I wanted to give you guys was on our fiscal year 21 audit. Unfortunately, we did not make the December 1st deadline, and that was due to the audit team having some COVID issues and being in quarantine, so they got behind. I talked with the team lead, Tim Lyons, this week just to make sure that we were still on for our December 31st submission date. He felt confident that I would be receiving the draft by the end of this week, and once I review the draft, then we can get it submitted. Gates County, I will say, we did have all of our information into them by October 15th when our deadline was. It was just unfortunate COVID happened. So we are looking at the end of this month of having it submitted. And we've already submitted the paperwork with the LGC for the extension to the contract.
So they were informed.
Yes, and that was the reason that was on the form was due to COVID related. So the next item in your packet, you had a tentative FY23 budget schedule.
Could you repeat that?
The FY23 budget schedule, it looks like this. I did want to go over that briefly for anyone that is listening or watching the meeting tonight, and I will be putting together an email tomorrow, at least for the department heads, to give them a heads up that this year we are moving a little bit quickly in our timeline, or quicker in our timeline. What I have as a tentative budget schedule for December would be for tonight for this meeting. I'm presenting you with the budget schedule. I just wanted to briefly mention we would like some priorities from the board to please begin to think about what the board's priorities are for fiscal year 23. It may be by our January meeting, we could have some of that information so we can, begin to think about that as we are putting together the budget from the departments. We are working hard in the finance department, revising and reviewing all of our current chart of accounts. We are trying to make them more unified. So you will see that they may be different numbers this upcoming year, but I've pulled out my account code book that we have received. I guess it was back in 1992, and there has not been a revision since 1992. This came from the LGC, so I'm just looking at, all right, where are things being posted versus what was in this account code book, so we will have a more unified accounts for all the departments. I plan on meeting with the department heads within the next couple of weeks. I know some people may be out for the holidays or whatnot, and if that's the case, I'll meet with them one-on-one the 1st of January to talk about this. With the department heads, we want to discuss the budget template. It shouldn't be too different than what they have seen in the past. We might revise it just a little bit, but the biggest thing will be any revisions to the account codes. In any of the account codes, we'll have descriptions, we'll have examples of vendors that we have typically paid in the past, just to give folks okay, this is where this should be posted to. And then I hope to have all the departmental budget templates sent out to the department heads by the end of this month. So in January, again, when we come back together for the board meeting, if the board has any priorities that we need to make note of so that we can start researching cost or whatnot for the budget, that would be a good time for that information. I am requesting that departmental budget requests be turned in no later than the end of January. And I will be working with Ms. Chestnut to make sure that we do get this information out to some of the other outside entities that do send in information to us, like for the animal shelter, for example, forestry, that are not department heads, but we still have to budget for, just to let them know that we're doing things a little earlier this year. I have down here for February, that first week in February, that would be when we would meet with the department heads, with the county manager and myself, to go over the budgets that they have submitted. I have down here to be determined, so this would be at the pleasure of the board, when you would like to set that meeting, like we had last year, where the department heads could come and discuss maybe some of their upcoming needs and wants for fiscal year 23. That may be better if it's possible to have that scheduled towards the latter part of February to make sure that they've had enough time to meet with the county manager and myself, and if there are any follow-up questions, that they can go ahead and look into it before they present their information to the board. But again, that's at the pleasure of the board when you would like to set that meeting. So I have for the months of March and April that we will have that time to draft the budget, to compile it, so that by the April board meeting, we will have that budget message and budget presented to the board. That gives, again, however many budget workshop meetings that you guys feel that we need to have, that can happen between that meeting in April and the next board meeting in May, and have the public hearing in May. So that also gives us time between May and June when we need to adopt that budget based on the comments and feedback from the public hearing. If there are other things that need to be tweaked in that budget, we have several weeks to do it in before we need to adopt that budget in June. So it's a breakneck schedule than what we're used to, but did anyone have any feedback or anything they felt that needed to be changed for this tentative schedule?
Looks like a good schedule.
Yeah, and it makes it before July.
Yes.
And starting early, that's good.
Yes.
I think it's going to work because we have to also look at the funding we're getting from all the other, like state and federal and grant money. So we can look at that as well before we start spending our money,
Right,
hopefully, prayerfully.
right.
So that'll give us time to do all of that.
Do we have a projected grant schedule?
The grant money is already drawn, it's in, what, 1.4 million ARP money that we already have?
Yes, we've received the first tranche, I believe that was back in May or June. So we are not eligible to receive the second half until 365 days after you receive the first tranche. But we haven't spent any of it yet. And if we did have a project already approved and in place, and we had only received the first tranche, you can still continue to spend your allotted amount, even if you haven't received it yet, as long as you have money in the checking account to write the checks. But you can go ahead and keep spending. That was just the payment schedule for this grant money.
And that could be reimbursed as it goes along?
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon the checking account, of course. And how about any other pending grants? Do we have any that are?
The NTIA grant.
Expecting?
I haven't heard anything else on that since that last
Everything
email that
else.
I had sent you guys. I think they had received a lot of submissions for that money, so there was a little bit of a delay, and they were still deciding on how to award that money.
And Commissioner Craddock, you'll hear about that grant. I'll share that information that we submitted with Roanoke Electric for I think it's $1.9 million that we submitted
I think so.
for that grant. We're waiting to see if we're going to get awarded. So pray hard.
Absolutely.
So the second part that I was going to go over, if there weren't any other questions on that budget schedule, I was just going to give a very, very high overview right now of where we are with our budget. The revenue for the government is very complicated and very hard to project because you have different revenue streams coming in, and they're coming in at different points in time. Some things like the sales tax revenue that I usually report on, that's 3 months after the collection date. Some of our revenue streams we only receive one time a year, and that's at the end of the fiscal year. So as of, and this is just the general fund, as of today, when I looked at, for the total we budgeted in the general fund and what we've actually collected, we are at 41% collected. And again, this is just 41% actual from what we budgeted. And then for the expenditures with the general fund, we've spent 61% of what we've budgeted. The expenditures are a little bit easier than the revenues when you're looking at projections, because typically you're paying about the same amount each month, unless it's, for example, like your debt payment. You pay that either one time a year or 2 times a year. So that's where we are. I'm not, at this particular time, it doesn't concern me that the expenditures are at 61%, the revenues are at 41, just because of how this money flows.
The timing.
The timing of it, correct.
And when you add it up, it's 102%, so that kind of throws you off, yeah.
So for the enterprise fund, I really didn't put any information down there. We're still working through some of the cleanup from when the advance payments were posted into the revenue line. So we're still working through some of that. So I didn't want to give any inflated percentages or whatnot. And the last piece of information I was going to talk about was the sales tax revenue that was collected. This would be for September sales. And for September sales received in December, this was our lowest month thus far in the 3 months we've collected. But we are still showing, if we collect at an average at this rate, we're still going to have a surplus at the end of the year over what was budgeted. And we are still higher than we were a year before in fiscal year 21 for the same time period for total collected. So even though this month was the lowest thus far, it was still not concerning. We're still in good shape.
Is it still hovering around 70% or less than that? One time it was up quite a bit, right?
I didn't calculate anything in percentages. I looked at, if we are projecting out an average thus far with the three, again, we've only have three months, the surplus at the end of the year would be a little over 186,000. Now that, I didn't break it up into restricted and unrestricted. I'm just giving you kind of an overview. And we're still, just for the 3 months collected in fiscal year 22 versus what we collected in 3 months in fiscal year 21, we've collected over 35,000 more than the prior year, same time frame. So, and that was all. Had a lot tonight.
Very good.
Any other questions for Ms. Outland? Thank you, Kim.
Okay.
Very good.
Are there any other questions about any of the reports you see in your packet? We have emergency management, building and grounds, planning and zoning, inspections, water and sewer, customer service, GITS report, and finance report. We just heard the finance report. Okay, hearing none. We don't have any public hearings. Don't have old business, new business. Resolution authorizing electronic payments. Ms. Outland just talked briefly about that. Can you come back? This in your packet with supporting documentation from the UNC School of Government. She's been very thorough. Okay. She has the NCAC code. Okay.
So I did, for this, I did put supporting documentation in your packet with this resolution, just to kind of give you some of the background on this. Essentially, what happened in 2015 during this, I'm trying to get on my notes. In a nutshell, they were trying to help modernize the pre-audit and disbursement processes, and that in your packet was the two exemptions from that. That would be the NC Administrative Code 3.0409 through .0410. Prior to this, just to give you an example, if you were going to use your fuel card at the gas station, because we all have the fuel cards. Essentially, the finance officer, or whoever has been appointed to be able to sign off on the pre-audit statement, is supposed to go down to the gas station, make sure first that you have money in your account, go down there and then stamp essentially a purchase order or whatnot with that pre-audit statement. Now, I can't be everywhere at every time of the day. So what this exemption does is it helps with things like online purchases. It helps with things with fuel cards, with procurement cards, where you can't be everywhere at once, and you are not in violation of the general statute 159-28, where everything is supposed to be in writing and it's supposed to have that pre-audit statement. Now, that does not get us around, are we supposed to be checking whether or not we have money in our account line? Yes, we cannot obligate for what we don't have. But what this resolution does is it's the board basically saying we are authorized to do electronic payments, electronic transactions, and you are, I guess, giving me the responsibility of making sure we do have all these written policies in place of how we're going to ensure that these have been encumbered, have we trained our employees on what these processes are, etc. This is really step one. I was not sure with the turnover that has in the past few years with the finance office, and when this was enacted, if we did have this in place or not. So it was more of a housekeeping. I wanted to make sure we were following the letter of the law. We did have this resolution in place so that we could then begin to go back and look at our procurement policy to make sure that it is still good, or do we need to update, revise, have things changed here? Looking at our fuel card policy, I know we all signed that. I believe I remember signing it and reading it when I first started here. I don't have a fuel card, but I believe I remember reading it. Just to make sure that, do we need to update that? If we go with procurement cards, do our policies match this? Until we have a resolution in place, technically, we should not be doing any kind of online payments, transactions, purchases. So that's where this came into play.
So we are making sure that we're following the 159-28 general statute, and it's the first step that we need to take to use the procurement cards.
Yes, that's a part of it. But essentially, it's for any kind of electronic transaction we're doing. So if we're paying vendors online, that's an online
So
transaction.
that and the procurement cards, it addresses both.
So right now, I'm trying to make sure, I have a stamper with this, the specific language you have to use for the pre-audit, and I stamp everything. Our checks, our physical checks already have that disbursement language on there. But we just have to make sure when we're now doing electronic, that as long as we have this resolution in place, we are exempt from some of these, everything being in writing with that particular stamp. Now, we still have to make sure that we have money in the account. That didn't go away. It was just the making sure that if you need fuel for your car, you can get it. And I don't have to be there to stamp it before you can put your card in.
Madam Chair, I appreciate Ms. Outland's attention to detail, not just in the way she presented it, but in the dialogue that she puts in our packet. And I think we should adopt this resolution. I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? It's been motioned and seconded that we adopt the resolution, resolution authorizing Gates County to engage in electronic payment as defined by GS 159-28 or GS 115C-441. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Outland. Now we'll hear the proposal for reorganization of staff by our county manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As I advised the board on a previous occasion, you had asked me to take a look at the county staffing organization and to bring back proposals that could perhaps make some of the staffing organization a little bit more efficient. I took a look at a few departments, and a couple of them did stand out for different reasons that I thought were good candidates for reorganization. First one consists of the planning department, and and all these departments are small departments. That department consists of the county planner who manages that department, as well as a code enforcement technician and a development services assistant. Another separate department that works closely with this department is the building department and the inspections department. What they do, in short, is that they manage the county's building code inspection program. They administer that. And the proposal I have here would be to merge those two departments into a single department and rename that department Planning and Development, because those would be the two essential functions that this department would do. The planning, which is already being done under the planning department, being your land use plan and other planning activities, that speaks for itself. The development part, that department also enforces and administers development ordinances, most namely the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. So that department is already in the business of code administration and enforcement, and the zoning and the building permit inspections or permits often run hand in hand. If you're building new structures, additions, so forth, many of those types of development require both a zoning and a building permit. So the coordination, having this underneath a single department under single leadership, leads to possibility of better organization of those functions. In terms of the responsibilities of the staff, those would essentially remain the same. Their job duties would not require changing, with the exception of the county planner. I would recommend that position, which is traditionally who would be the head of this type of department, would need to be rewritten to be the director of the Department of Planning and Development. Many of the duties would remain the same, but the inspections department would no longer be a separate department. So you would have your chief building inspector or building administrator. That position would report to the new planning and development director. And within that department, there is one other position which is presently vacant, which is a building code inspector position. That position would continue to report to the chief building inspector or building administrator. So they already are located in the same office. Very, very little physical change at all that would need to take place. Not much to take place in terms of merging these two departments under one leadership or one development manager. And this is a very common department set up for a department of this size, providing these functions. The next department I looked at was the Customer Services Department. And this department consists of 3 positions in total. You have a Customer Services Representative, and that position is currently vacant. And you also have, a Senior Customer Service Representative that is vacant, a Customer Service Representative, and then you have the person who heads this department, which is the Customer Services Director. The 2 service representatives, by and large, what they do have other duties, but they intake money for the county for various things, be they permit fees, essentially everything except the taxes, which is taken care by the tax administrator, the payment of taxes. But just about all other monies owed the county come through this department. And the customer services director, that person obviously manages the functions and performance of those two people. And that position has its own responsibilities as well. Principal in that, in my opinion, would be looking at the administration and the process, and what I call the administration and processing of the utility billing, namely being the water and some limited sewer. This position does have some other responsibilities, but I consider the responsibilities and tasks related to the water and wastewater billing to be principal amongst that position, and with the other principal duty being the management of the staff that is in that department. My proposal would eliminate that department. And my main reason for looking at that department is the two customer service representatives. Those two individuals in that position, they are, as I said before, they are responsible for the intake of the money by the county. As you know, the finance officer is ultimately responsible for the management of the money that comes into the county, yet the finance officer does not have any managerial control or oversight over these two employees who play a large part in the intake of money by the county. And I think it is appropriate that any persons who come in contact with the monies of the county, the handling and the management of money by the county, that in this fashion come underneath the control of the finance officer, as Kim is ultimately responsible. She should be able to be the person who would set any policies, any procedures, or other matters. Looking at the third position, since it is so closely related to with primary responsibilities with water billing administration, I would recommend that position actually become part of the utility department where those billings originate. There, that person can work directly at an administrator. I would look at possibly even some supervisory responsibilities within that department, because it has a director, but it doesn't have anybody to serve in any type of deputy or assistant capacity in the absence of the director. But I would recommend that the customer service director position be reclassified, and like I said, this could be a different name, but be a billing administrator, with that position being relocated to the utility department, where they can then work closely with the people who are reading the meters and any problems that come up with either operations, billing questions that may be related to that. The administrator is directly there in that department to work alongside with the personnel of that department. So those are very broad brush conceptual changes for these various departments. Should the board see either one or both of these favorable, I could further work, and I would prepare the appropriate job descriptions, make the changes to the county's organizational chart, which you will see I've included at the conclusion of this report. Those things would need to take place. Both the board would have to approve the changes in the job descriptions, as well as the change to the county's organizational chart. But I bring those two forward to you this evening for your consideration and direction on how you wish to proceed.
I would like to see some more support and documentation on what you're proposing. Is this one also, will this be cost neutral?
There'd be some small cost involved, but like I said, there's not a lot of, especially on the planning and development side. I probably would look at an adjustment to the salary of the position of the new director for planning and development, as I would with any position if you're asking it to take on, a person to take on additional responsibilities, but that would be a small increase in cost.
Other comments?
Well, at this time, it's a recommendation. We asked him to look for things like that when he came on board. So I think we'll probably take it into consideration. I think we should individually take it into consideration and maybe contact the county manager with our individual questions and, you know, before we ever bring it to a vote, is its recommendation. I mean, that's what I would say about it.
And I'll just say, you know, why I picked these two is that, you know, the proposed planning and development, that's very customary because then you have one person who can better coordinate all of the development services that are taking place. And I do feel strongly that people who are handling money should come underneath the control of the finance officer, because that is the person who is, you know, if she's held ultimately responsible, then I think she likewise should be able to exercise managerial control over people who are handling the money.
So basically, an equal amount of oversight for the responsibility that she takes. One thing that we've talked about in the past, before Tim ever got here, was when somebody comes to get a building permit, that for anything, that there be more of a seamless thing. You know, you come to say, I need a permit, I'm going to build a house. And the next step, what is the next step? If all those things are within the same department, it makes it sort of seamless. There was one time we even talked about, you know, being able to hand a person next step type things. Okay, because you know, you're building your first house, you're out there not knowing what the next step is, and this might help a little bit there. I mean, I think they do a good job over there as far as directing the people, but
We have a wonderful permit technician. Stop Powell, he is.
oh yeah, very good, very good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and he goes, I can vouch, he goes above what I call customer service, call it customer service plus.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, but that is something we have talked about several times in the past.
Yeah, the building and inspections and all, that needs to be customer friendly because like you say, most people don't build but one house or two houses in their lifetime. It's a big undertaking and they need help when you go in there by filling out these forms and all.
Yeah.
Could we have a diagram, a chart diagram? I'm a visual person, you know, how these, with the layout of it.
Yeah, I could.
I mean, I know we have this
the
organizational chart,
chart.
but it's easier sometimes to see it in a,
Yeah,
I could do
a good one, I agree, a good one with just what you're proposing without of the other things in there too would
Yeah.
be.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's what.
yeah, just a clean one with these.
Before and after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Craddock, you said you wanted more supporting documentation. Could you,
I would like, just,
I mean, could you give him,
I'll get with him.
okay, good. What I was going to say.
He can answer
yeah,
all the questions I have.
is that you make an appointment, each one of us, if you have questions as far as how his proposal fits into the organization, make an appointment with the county manager.
And share that information with the rest afterwards, because it might not have been something we thought of, or it might be something we were going to, and it's already been answered.
As far as a board meeting, Madam Chair, what month would we like to see this again?
January.
January.
And I know it's Christmas. I know Tim's gonna take some time off. Me too. I haven't got my Santa Claus letters written yet. But we need to, meet with him or call him or something without questions or ask as far as what we want to see so he can get it together. So when we come back in January, we do what we're gonna do. I mean, we have it together, everybody's input, he'll have his charts and whatever he needs, and that should be a presentation, and we should be ready to move forward with it or not. January, we can't drag this out.
Yeah, well, I think he's already done
He's done most of the
some
work.
work on it. I think the thing that might cause him a little bit of delay would be possibly rethinking the new job description. That sounds easy, but sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
So Tim, do you think you can get all that in January?
Would February be?
February. Let's do
February, I think February would be,
Yeah, February, yeah, since
All right.
if we're looking at, just because of the advanced time, putting the packet together, getting out to you.
Talking to everybody.
And it gives you a little bit more time to
Think about
get
it.
your questions together for me as well.
Commissioner Freeman and Harper, that okay?
That's
That
right.
sounds fine. I would like, when you were doing your analysis and looking at it, did you look at emergency management and communications?
Yeah, I'm looking at that. Well, I'll talk about it now. I was just going to mention it at the end. Well, one thing I'm doing with emergency management, the state has a program out there, and they seem pretty ambitious about, especially with smaller rural localities, trying to get collaboration for them to join together in their dispatching services. So I have reached out, I have had meetings and discussions with some of the other counties in the area to see if in fact they would be interested in collaborating to do basically a joint dispatch board. And right now, I've talked to several counties, but there's 2 counties right now that I'm still talking with to see if we can come to some type of agreement that, yes, that the staff and the persons involved think that it's doable to bring back to this board. So that's why I don't really have anything on this, because if that idea, gets legs underneath it and gets the support of the various governing bodies, then, that would be a considerable change, which hopefully we would enjoy, ultimately. And part of the goal is you get efficiencies in both, service and cost savings by doing it. I know my preference in doing something like this is to establish, if you get a number of localities together, to make it under like an authority type structure, so that you have equal parties, so to speak, at the board, at the table, that get to make decisions concerning the dispatch services and how they're performed. But it's different how they're managed in various counties. Some dispatch comes under Sheriff's Department, some come underneath counties. We've got that mixture of some of the counties we're talking to now, so all those dynamics come into play. But I do like to see, it would be my desire to see it be an authority type structure where everyone has an equal say.
Very well. I know I read Legislative Journal and see that the 911 system has had funds to fund that.
Yes.
And what counties they've already named them, if you will, the 911 system named them. I won't call them in here, and the combination of that. But prior to that, just looking at our system with the emergency management actually being separate from communications, I'd always wondered why we don't entertain the thought of having a director of communications or supervisor of communications. And because emergency management, if he gets called elsewhere, then there's no one there to actually take over and have that authority. So I figured that when you did your analysis, you probably saw that.
Yeah, and like I said, we're looking at, because It's, the state, they do, it's a $5 million grant program, and it's all the way from, if you're only at the level that you're not positive and you want to conduct a study to see, can you work out a management structure that everybody can be agreeable with, it'll fund that type of activity, all the way down to, you've come to the decision that you want to do it, and you have hard costs, brick and mortar, whatever it is, it runs the whole gambit. And so we're going to see how much agreement we can come to. I'm hoping that at least a study will come out of it, because I think it does have merit, and I've heard some talk that, you know, the state right now, they're holding out what I call the carrot, that they want to see this happen, and they say maybe in the future the state's going to make localities, you know, they're going to divide it up, and right now I'd rather be controlling my own destiny than have the state say, okay, this is the group that you're going to be in. So
Yeah, I saw that, like I say, the legislative review, the two counties we're paired up with,
yeah.
and the actual place they'd like to place it, where they'd like to have it.
Did that show, Commissioner, did that show the whole state, divide the whole state up like that?
It does.
Did.
It does.
Yeah. So,
In various areas, and whether or not those communities or those commissioners or those governing bodies wish to have that. So, but the funds have been made available.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because what I've been doing right now is, I was going to do that underneath my report, was to let you know that I've been having those conversations, because if none of them, you know, were fruitful and everyone said no, I wouldn't really have anything to report to you on. But we've had I think some fairly positive talks. Hopefully they'll remain on a positive track, and I'll be reporting back to you again soon.
One of the counties that you contacted or talked with, one of the commissioners called me last week, and I referred him right back to you.
Thank you.
I don't get it. I'm not kidding. No.
I got one more question. Talking about customer service department, talking about electronic payments, just brought something up, hope it's the right time to talk about. Have we ever decided anything on the prepayment of the water department? If we can move forward with that, or?
That item was, I believe, correctly, it was tabled, and that will not be brought back until this body decides or votes to bring it back for further discussion and debate.
Okay, so we can put that on the next agenda.
Yeah. If this, am I correct, Madam Clerk, in saying that it was tabled? Or would you have to research that?
It was, Mr. Owens has stated that once things got resolved, then it will come back.
Okay.
Right, and do I recall, and y'all please help me with this, a little bit, that we may not have been absolutely correct, and maybe Kim can help us on this, that we were not actually taking interest from our customers if they paid in advance. Am I correct about that? Did I hear that from Southern Bank?
Come join us again.
I might still have it in my folder. I had reached out with several of the professors with the School of Government. I might still have it here. And yes, they all confirmed that the two things that I had checked on was, once the advance payments came into light with the water payments, I was also looking into, we have prepayments with the tax department. So I checked on all of it to make sure, because when the question came up, all right, if we are depositing these advance payments into our checking account, which is interest bearing, not a lot of interest, but interest bearing, who does that belong to? So for the tax prepayments, his response was, you're correct. If the county does earn interest, it's the county's. The same was for the utility payments, because that was a voluntary payment to the county. So the customer who paid it does not get the interest, because it was a choice. I I look at it as, it's either a choice to leave it in your checking account or savings account where you could earn interest, but the choice was to pay it for whatever the reason was for the utilities payment. I have, since this is all, since there were some questions on this, I did sign the paperwork with the bank if we want to talk about auto drafts. Not yet? Okay.
One of the reasons that we tabled, if we actually use that word, was over the ordinance versus a policy. And we said on the prepayment, the stuff that we needed to, it's what is on the website was the current, until we vote, until we have hearings and everything and vote on that, we have to go by that ordinance. So we decided, or I think I made the comment, and we agreed to wait until we had the policy in place rather than the ordinance, and then we would make some of those changes. I believe that to be correct.
The only reason it's just as a matter of procedure. If a matter is tabled, it takes a motion by this body to vote to bring it back and put it back on the table for further discussion. It's fine with me if you want to bring it back, but just trying to follow the procedure. And yes, when I found out about it, I was concerned having to handle various types of monies in terms of sureties, monies that were held as part of refundings or refinancing. I had a real question about the interest of the money. Who legally did that money belong to? When we found out that, I'm glad we did, that it was money of, it would belong to the county. But, bringing this up is almost a case in point why, I've recommended the restructuring. The finance department, actually this money, even though the interest did not end up being a problem, this money was not being recorded properly, because all of this money was being recorded as a revenue. And actually the advance was, in a sense, a liability, and our accounting should have reflected that. And if I'm mistaken, Kim, please correct me, but had to go back, speak with the auditors, and have that corrected about that practice going on. Once again, my reason, anybody who is handling, controlling money coming into the county should be underneath the finance department to make sure that the finance officer knows exactly what's going on at all times. There was no wrong intent on anybody's purpose in any of this, but it was a simple mistake. But I think it's a mistake that could have been avoided and can be avoided in the future if we have all things financial handled by the finance department.
No, you did the right thing. You saw a red flag, you stopped.
Right.
Correct.
That's what we need. So, can we put it on the agenda for next meeting?
We need a motion to bring it back.
I'll make a motion that we bring it back to the table.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. It'll be on the next agenda.
And Kim can walk some more.
Madam Clerk, make sure that's on the agenda for next month. Any other discussion, or we can just move on to I think we had a vote, didn't we, Madam Clerk? We finished that. Okay, we got off on another.
Yeah, I think I got everybody off of that.
All right, Travis.
I told you it was gonna happen.
I know you did. We amended the agenda to include the opiate resolution. That's in front of you. We have been talking about this and discussing this all year. There is an opportunity for settlement to be paid to the states and local entities that have had issues with opiate. You've heard Commissioner Freeman give us updates on that in the past. So the deadline is January, I think it's the first week in January, I think, I can't remember now. But when I saw it, I sent it to the attorney, to Attorney Godwin, for him to get some kind of, get his arms around it, and he did, and he got the resolution to us late this afternoon, so that we can consider that if we want to go forward with that, we need to have this resolution in place. We have a state MOA, that's what, that, you see that also, and then you have the resolution by the County of Gates approving the Jansen settlement relating to the settlement of opiate litigation. So
Can
you
we
ha-
do both of them at the same time,
Can we do both of them at the same time?
or have separate votes?
I would suggest you do them separately.
Okay.
Because there's other paperwork that I have to email and mail directly to DOJ.
Okay. All right, let's look at the resolution of approving the Jansen settlement relating to the settlement of opiate litigation first.
I make a motion, we go ahead and approve it.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Second document is a resolution by the County of Gates approving a memorandum of agreement between the state of North Carolina and local governments on proceeds relating to the settlement of opiate litigation.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve this resolution as well.
Second out.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? So moved. And Mr. Godwin, I'll sign these tonight, so you can get them in the morning.
I'd like to thank Ms. Chestnut for her help this afternoon in getting this to you.
Okay, thank you.
I was a little bit late in getting the information, but I was able to get it.
That's what you call teamwork.
Excellent.
And then be a minute for the housing grant, the part-time grant writer. We have another opportunity, like I said before, to get another housing repair grant. We've had three before, I think it's 16, 17, and 18. We're still trying to close them out. We applied for 21 this year, and we did not get that grant. But in our failure to get the grant, they did tell us what we need to tighten up in the grant submission. So we know what we need to do. And we've talked to Ms. Holly about being the grant writer again, and she agreed to that yesterday. And I talked to the county manager, and he said, yes, let's get this done. Because we have a number of houses that need repairs, and this is money that we can use to do that. The grant is for $100,000. The only fee we have to pay is $75 application fee to write the grant. And then, of course, we have to pay, not have to, she didn't ring my arm, but pay the grant writer part-time. She'll work 20 hours. She said it'd take about 20 hours to write the grant. That's $65 an hour for $1,300. I don't think we can get any better than that.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I second.
Motion and second that we go forth with the part-time grant writer for the housing grant. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
And while we're on that topic, have we heard anything about the Walton Heights, Mrs. Walton's? I hate to ask, but I need to ask.
Yeah, I hate to answer. What I told was imminent was going to happen, did not happen. Those homes, I was told by the administrator that it was imminent. And when I asked him in my last meeting that was supposed to occur in November, and the homes still have not been sent. I plan on speaking, I've talked to the chairman about this. I plan on speaking directly with the president of the company who's doing the administration on this. I think this is.
Thank you.
I went and checked
And we've been
on,
bouncing that ball.
I went and checked on one this past weekend, and, yeah, I mean, it's easy to see that I hadn't got there. And, you know, some of this is out of our, I mean, we have no control over it. I mean, we get promises, and the promises don't happen, and we don't, and all we can do is just keep crying to them until it happens.
I brought it up at my staff meeting. I just asked, just to see that when the home showed up, you know, just to verify that, you know, the permits have been drawn. So, you know, hopefully foundation, you know, whatever work could be done, because it's been so late. And that's when Ms. Carrie informed me that she heard that the homes were not going to be in until April. So, I said, every time I speak to the company doing the administration, I get different answers, and they're not good answers.
I'm not looking for any way to bail them out. Talking about the other parties. I'm not making any excuses for them, but I do know personally somebody that made a call to a company about a modular home, and they had looked at one on a website, and they told the person that they would talk to them about that. They couldn't give them a firm price, and if they wanted one, they could put an order in for 2022, and this was 2 months ago, and I don't think it was early 2022 either. So there are some COVID issues with construction or workers or something.
There is some
Yeah.
COVID, and there are some issues with supply chain, but this has been
It's been a long
an
time.
extreme amount of time.
And we asked them, Mr. County Manager, in this forum, where was the money? Remember that? We asked them.
Physically, where
at
was
the
the money?
podium, where is the money?
What bank was it in? Yeah.
I guess the part that I find, disappointing is that, I specifically asked, what did imminent mean? And I was told that was in November. When they knew that wasn't going to happen in November, I should have at least received the courtesy of a phone call.
Apology.
And I didn't. I mean, just please keep me informed if nothing else, even if it's with bad news.
Your microphone, I keep seeing Warren shaking his head at you.
But, yes, I mean, and I think that's been, part of the problem is been a lack of communication of status. That's what I'm more accustomed to from someone administering a grant, is getting regular reports on the status of what that administrator who is being paid to administer. And they're working for us, and it's their duty to keep us informed.
Yes, sir. And I know I asked him the question directly about the money, and he said all he had to do was call the state, and it drew it down. And I think my recollection is right on the nail.
That's what he said, so.
And
And
if that's the case, it should have been able just in a month's time.
Okay. Thank you, County Manager, for your updates, your comments, and the work of your staff. Kim's gone, but Kim's really been driving very fast on this budget and the audit. Next is the chair update. Is very brief. I had questions about the Unity Monument that we approved for, installation as far as the Unity Monument when we had the Confederate Monument resolution. Well, I guess it's supply chain again, because I've had Ms. Chestnut just about every other week calling the Davis Monument, and the last thing we heard was, it was going to be imminent. All they finally got the granted in, and all they wanted to do now is, do the inscription, but they were going to send that for us to look at. So I didn't get it, so I asked her to call again. Now it's going to be first of the year. So that's been ever since, what, March? I don't know. So we'll get the monument here, and we get the celebration as soon as we can get the monument delivered. The final update is that I did have a conversation this afternoon with George Vitale from USDA. He's the person that's been assigned to Gates County by Reginald Spate, who is the state director now of rural development in North Carolina. I had requested, with the board's permission, for someone to help us with, identifying the right grants. So many grants. We don't want to write every little grant. We just don't want to do that. So he called this afternoon, and we had a brief conversation. But he did send me a link to the latest grant applications that's out there. What's happening is the grants are being opened in January, and they're closing sometimes 2 or 3 months. Sometimes it's 30 days, depends on how large the grant is. So why is that important? Because we have to get someone to write those grants, or we won't get the grant, okay? And we're not staffed enough to know what grants to apply for, what's a good fit, and we don't have the staff to administer those grants. Writing the grant, you can write a grant, but it's the work after if you award it, that tax your staff. So I told him, I would share this with the board, and we get back with him. He's still going to work with us. He's feeding the information to me. I'm trying to feed it to the staff as best I can. I'm trying to help the best I can, and I appreciate everything they're doing. But we don't have the staff needed to do what we need to do. So the ARC money can be used for a project manager. That's the title. And the grant pays for it, but that person has to work 100% for that funding. So I've drafted a job description and given it to the staff to look at and tweak it. We have checked on it. I had Kim to look, to contact I call them the ARC people that were running the workshops and ask specifically about using that money. They said yes, as long as they had a time and effort report that they work with that. That said, that person could also work with any grant that's tied to the ARC money. And the county doesn't have to pay one dime. You can take it out of that $1.4 million. So the sooner we do something, and I don't know what that's something, I'm just telling you, I'm just updating you, the better, because the money is coming open. People are applying. That's what happened with the NTIA grant. They had so many applications, because we were supposed to know by November the 17th if we were awarded or not awarded. They got so many applications, they pushed it to the first of the year. And that's what's going to happen, because there's so much money out there with the ARC money, the infrastructure, state money, the federal, whatever that is they call it, all these acronyms. The states and local entities are applying left and right, and they already have staff. So we need to very seriously, as a board, as a governing body, decide what are we going to do. If we don't apply, we're not going to get the money. We need wastewater, we need broadband, housing, whatever, technology. That money, some of the monies, but you got to get the right pot of money, can be tapped to help us, and we won't have to go into our bank account, our budget, to pay for it. So that's my concern as chair, is that we don't have the staff available right now. So it's going to have to be a meeting held with this governing body to decide, what are we going to do? It's not acceptable that we don't act because we don't have people to act. We can have somebody part-time, full-time. We got to do something. And I'm just giving you my update. I'm going to continue to take the phone calls. I'm going to continue to watch what's going on around us. Read the paper. Read the Daily Advance. Read the Roanoke Chowan Herald. People are getting money left and right and spending money on projects. You've heard me say before, if you don't have a project, you will not get the money. They're not going to give you money just because they like Gates County. What are you going to do with it? What's the project? So we have an opportunity that we may not ever have again, because I hope COVID goes away. But one of the good things about COVID is there's funding. It's provided funding. And another good thing is we have so many infrastructure issues across the United States, these old bridges and things. They're putting money at the state level. The state is trying to get it to the local areas, such as rural North Carolina, Northeast, Tier 2, depressed, that's what they call us. And it's there. But we have to have the staff to write the grants and get this money so we can start doing our own infrastructure and repair or build, whatever we want to build. So that's my update. I may get Mr. Vitale to come to see us one day and just sit and talk with us, I don't know. But now he's working remotely, and I told him I would share this at this meeting. He said, okay. I did not click on the link. I didn't have time. I had to come to this meeting. But I will keep you updated, and that's my update. Now we have Commissioner and County Manager comments. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, I think. First of all, I want to thank Jack for arranging all the, Commissioner Owens for arranging the luncheon today, and all the commissioners being in favor of that. I believe the county employees enjoyed that. And only had one little vice about it, and that was one area was completely left out of, and they kind of felt left out, so we should discuss that and make sure that doesn't occur again if the rest of the commissioners agree with me on that, and I hope you will. I want to bring you up to date certainly on our COVID situation, if you will, knowing that Omicron is certainly raising its ugly head above everyone. And right now, throughout the United States, I believe it's a little over 800,000 deaths. The Delta variant and Omicron both came upon after we began the vaccinations, as you well know. So I'm not just trying to reiterate it, but bring it to the attention of all that it is nothing to play with, because this COVID is just, what it's doing is mutating to whatever it can get around with your vaccination, with whatever immune system you have and you're building up. COVID is able to vary it, move around, and then start another variant. So probably after Omicron, there'll be another one. I don't not expect that. I certainly expect that, and hearing it from the experts. Gates County, we still stand at total first doses at 3,607, second doses at 3,949. Now, does that make sense?
No.
It probably doesn't. However, if you think about Gates County and then what happened when we began giving the vaccination, we certainly were flooded by a lot of folks from Virginia. And so they heard about it. So second doses, there were more folks coming in and getting the second dose. So second dose is higher. The third doses administered to date are 1,048. Now that includes, that's a booster. So you could receive the booster as well as a third vaccination. Now I'm told by the experts, those that are in the field and those that have the degrees with that, the third dose gives a person more immunity versus a booster. Many of you got boosters already, but you have to meet certain criteria for the third vaccination. However, that does, say for instance, the booster is 0.5 and the regular third shot is 2.5, then you get that much more immunization if your body can take it, and if, you know. So nurses will question you about that. Ms. Reddick and out at our medical center, certainly. Total first doses by our particular area is 48,472. Total second doses are 46,970. Total booster third shots are 10,048 at this time. So it gives you a little bit of an overview where it is. When we talk about what happens, and in Gates County we have 21 active cases right now. So that's in the county. Is it Omicron? No, I believe it's all going to be the Delta variant. Gates County has not had any Omicron yet, but I expect that to be taken over shortly, because Virginia already is having quite a few, as well as the rest of the United States. So we're in and out of Virginia, as you well know, every day as our workers, our civilians, and so I expect that. Total number of deaths for Gates County are 19. I certainly believe that figure is much smaller than what it is, because we've had a number of folks that have passed in Virginia, and I'm thinking that not all recorded for Gates County purposes. Gates County folks are either they attend school in Gates County. So the Gates House staff with 2, residents 1, and that's good. That's good for our citizens that are under care. So that's the update on our COVID situation. I did want to bring to, as part of COVID and as part of the situation that all of us are living under currently, the youth suicide in North Carolina has increased. Youth suicides increased more than 50%. So that's for North Carolina during this time of COVID, and that's pretty substantial. Firearm-related normal rate among children under 17 has nearly doubled. So that's part of that suicide portion. If anybody wants to talk to me about that particular part, or the questions about how suicide relates to COVID and the depression, the stress that our kids are under, as well as the adults, but certainly our kids. Trillium Services, we have treatment philosophy for kids, service funding. NC Basic Service for children, unique services for children. That's psychological help. Process to access and authorize these services. That comes through county manager as well as the county itself, but through Trillium, and they have a crisis intervention. For adult services, I think I brought that up before, but just to let you know that we have kiosks over in the courthouse, so that kind of keeps it away. We were able to have that in our courthouse. The best update I see for Trillium, you know, Trillium has a crisis intervention, and we have a crisis center. Helps out a great deal for law enforcement and our magistrate's office when Trillium and crisis intervention do differently than an IVC, and that's an involuntary commitment. So now, many times Trillium can help out by sending an individual over in an automobile and talk with the potential IVC and have them committed elsewhere for evaluation. But now Trillium has reached out and they have bought and purchased Monarch Mobile Clinics. So that's for Gates County, Northampton, and Halifax. In those clinics, they'll have the ability to do lab work in that clinic, outpatient, flu shots, evaluations, as I mentioned, and in January, March, they're going to have a ribbon cutting for that, and it'll be in one of the counties and maybe not at the medical center. I suggested in Gates County at the community center because we had a good turnout when we did the playground there. Trillium furnished those funds for that playground and that stuff. So anyway, other than that, like I said, I want to certainly thank our fellow commissioners for doing something for the county employees and also for the retreat. And Jack did a outstanding job at the retreat. So we appreciate that and the opportunity for us to be educated. Thank you.
Thank you, Freeman. Commissioner Hoffler.
I would like to talk about in the budget this year that was passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor, there was $1.5 million appropriated to NC Rural Tourism Recovery Pilot Program, and Gates County was one of the 10 counties that was specifically named to receive monies in this. Representative Ed Goodwin from Chowan County was the chief sponsor, and we have the money in the, it has to be divided, of course, but the program begins January 15th of 2022, and it has to be terminated by December 30th, 2023. And I have been talking to people in Chowan County, I have been talking to Albemarle Commission. They have appropriated the money, it's in the budget. Raleigh has got to come up with the guidelines for how it can be used. It is for tourism, for rural tourism to help us recover. So as soon as we get the information, we'll put in the paperwork and get started on that. So I'm really excited about that. I think that is a benefit, and certainly we will take advantage of that to help. You know, we have a lot of small businesses. Some of the things is they can help with marketing, you know, things that will bring in customers. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do there. Also, gyms this weekend, Saturday morning, 9:30 to 11 a.m. at the medical center. In November, we had 192 family units come through. We expect at least that many this time. Pass the word around in your neighborhood. And if you have a free Saturday morning, we'd love to see you. Vanessa, wouldn't we love to see people? So if you can do that. Also, concerning our convenience sites, we have had some concerns with convenience sites when the attendants try to make sure that people put their trash in the right containers. Sometimes people are not been very nice. We certainly cannot have that. We don't want people to be threatened. You know, do the right thing. It is very important. We need to make sure our trash is separated. it is very important to that because if trash is contaminated, it has to go into, it is more costly for us to get rid of. If it's yard waste, it costs us $58 a ton. If it's contaminated, it is $70 a ton. That's a $12 difference. So that is important. You know, put your yard debris in the yard container, put your cardboard in the cardboard thing, put your metal. And some people in the metal canisters sometimes like to throw things. And that means that when it gets to Belvedere, our central location site, they try to go through it and pick out the metal. But it said we still lose some money because you can't get it all out. So, you know, please treat the attendants with courtesy. They're doing their job. And just take a few minutes and separate your trash. That's all we're asking. And it will say it's good for the environment, but it's also good for the bottom line. And that $12 could be spent on something else for county citizens. So if you would do that. And my final thing is, there is a program that Visit NC Farms, and there is a goal across the state. I've talked to Ann Baggett, who is in charge. She wants all counties signed up by the first quarter of 2022, and I think this is December 2021, and there are 16 counties that are not signed up, and of course one is Gates County. I think we're working hard. County Extension with Helen Ewer, working to develop partnerships to help. We've talked to there are several counties around us, or they're in the 16 as well. Some of the counties north of the river have already, or north of the Albemarle Sign have already come into a partnership. They've signed contracts, and they will not let additional people in because they've already made their financial commitments. But we are trying to get in a partnership with, there are several counties that neighbor us, and we're talking with them. There is some upfront money, but as soon as we spend that money and make that financial contribution, North Carolina Department of Agriculture will give us an entire rebate on the fund, so it's a wash. We have to give the money, but they give it back to us. So we're working on that, trying to make sure that we can capture some of those funds too to help our farmers as well as, I mean, these are like beekeepers, people who have roadside markets. You know, if people have, you know, just different things that doesn't mean that you're already on. I mean, it could be a lot of things related to agriculture. So thank you. And yes, Commissioner Owens, you did a fantastic job. You're a wonderful cook. At all. So thank you for your efforts.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Commissioner Craig?
I'd just like to say, first off, to the Lions Club for the parade. It was awesome. That was the first parade I had been in 25 years probably, since I was about that tall. Brought back good memories, warmed my heart, had a great time with the commissioners that were in the vehicle throwing candy. Miss Hoffman needs to work on her arm a little bit. But,
I was trying to do a hook shot across the line.
Ms. Truman, thank you for your comments and your concerns. Appreciate. I like to hear things. So thank you. I wanted to comment on Ms. Eitland's report. It was an awesome job done by her. Has everything to back it up. I do appreciate that, and hope she hears this. And from our tax office, January 5th, taxes are due. So, thank you all.
Commissioner Owens?
Okay, the parade. There was something different about the parade this year. I don't know exactly what it was, but the kids, it was probably coming out of COVID, not having one last year. Attendance was good, and but the kids sitting there waiting for the candy, they were really excited, and it was a good parade. After the parade, I called the Lions Club, and this is a little bit of statistics that they gave me. I think it's pretty interesting. They had 77 entries, actually phone calls or forms registered. But every year, they have people who show up who want to be in the parade and either, fail to send their form in or whatever, but they assured me that they welcome all of them. Well, this year, there were 26 entries that showed up to be in the parade. Some may have shown up because they've shown up every year and maybe thought that they were registered. But I thought that was pretty interesting that you had 26 people to show up, and the lines welcome, put them right in line. So with that total, that's 103 entries in a parade. So I thought that was very well represented of the county. Mill Pond Christmas lights. So I've gone out there and checked that out, and I want to encourage, this may be the last, is this the last weekend for that, possibly?
I think it's the last weekend.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure.
Friday and
but,
Saturday night.
But thank you to the vendors and the individuals who are supporting that with their displays and with their finances. So we're glad to see that. Santa Claus is going to be at the courthouse across the street on Sunday afternoon. I think he's going to be there for maybe about a 2-hour period or something. I don't know exactly what time it starts. But it's around, I think it's around dusk when they get there. So anyway, thank you everyone for your attendance tonight. And again, thank you to the Lions Club. They do a wonderful job. And so we just want to thank them for that. They have a small workforce, but they accomplish a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Mr. Wilson, do you have any additional comments?
No, just to report that already talked about the regional approach on the dispatching. As the chairman knows, I'm much an advocate of trying to find some other regional approaches to work with some of our neighbors on some cost savings on some various issues. I'd like to thank the board on behalf of the employees for the luncheon this afternoon. It was very good, very thoughtful. I know it was much appreciated by the employees. I'm glad we had a smooth and successful closing on the refunding of the one loan, which helped save the county a couple of dollars. And I just like to hope everyone has a happy and a safe holiday season.
Okay. I'm going to ask the county attorney. He never says anything. He does his work behind the scenes.
Just hope everybody, like our county manager said, has a safe and happy holiday. We're getting through, I hope, COVID. And Gates County is a place that I'm proud to be from, and I hope everybody else is doing their best. I know this group here is doing their very best to make Gates County what it is, a special place.
Amen.
Well, I'll close with saying I want to thank the Board of Commissioners for, again, having the courage to keep me as chair. You're going to work harder next year than you did this year. We have a lot of work to do. We have to do it together. I want to thank especially the attorney for helping us for the last 6 months and some challenges we've had and collaborating outside the county to make sure that we was doing things correctly and legally. I want to thank the county manager for his diligence in looking at everything that's going on in this county. And let me just say, he's been here since May. So when he sees something, he didn't do it. It's there. And what I like about the county manager, when he sees it, he's quiet about it, but he tries to correct it and do it in a legal way. It's a main way, in a way that moves the county forward, and I want to thank him for that. Yes, I do sit with him, talk with him more than anybody on the board. I'm the chair. Some people have a problem with that. But he reports to the board. And he needs a sounding board. And I'm the one that calms him down. I'm the one that lights him up sometimes. And I do it in love. I love the citizens of this county. But as I continue to be on Zoom meetings 4 or 5 hours a day, or in meetings in offices, trying to get people to re-engage with this county, Gates County has a reputation that we've got to correct. If you burn the house down while you're in it, it's not going to end well. It's not. We're trying to attract businesses, we're trying to expand, we're trying to get stakeholders, we're trying to get grants, we're trying to get other citizens to move here if they so choose. We want people to stay. And we're beginning to look at the fact that we don't have enough staff. We love the staff we have, but we need more of them. And when you talk negative about this county, why would anybody want to come here and you live here and you don't want to be here? And as chair, that's not acceptable. Because we're selling Gates County. It's a nice place to live. It is. So be mindful, commissioners and citizens. Be as positive as you can. Don't lie, but don't embellish. Only speak what you know. And if you don't know, ask somebody that does. But in all your narrative, and they've heard me say this before, be positive in what we say. Be critical, but be positive. If you have a concern, you ought to have a solution. And say it without being mean about it, because people are watching. It's not just us watching this. People watch, but they want to see what Gates County is up to because they've heard so much about it, just like we watch other counties. So if you want to burn the house down with you in it, that's what's going to happen. Nobody wants to do business with people that can't get along. And yes, we're going to disagree, don't we? But we don't have to be mean about it and attack people personally. You don't have to do that. And yes, I move around the county. I got season tickets to the ball games. I just don't go because of underlying conditions. So don't make assumptions about why you don't see me. Don't make assumptions. I don't make assumptions about you, but I have season tickets. I buy dinner from the fire department and give them to the senior citizens. I've seen the light show. I was in the parade. And anywhere else that I can move around safely. County manager don't live in this county. He rents. So does the superintendent for 11 years. He just got here. So yes, we are your governing body, and we're going to govern legally, sincerely, and do what we can for Gates County, but we can't do it alone. Some of you are going to be asked to serve on committees. We have to have some new committees, like Mr. Craddock's going to be on the Broadband. That's a brand new committee, ad hoc. There are going to be others that we need, the citizens. We can't do the work. We govern the work, but we don't do the work. And the day-to-day, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We don't get into the day-to-day because we don't know what you're doing as far as the day-to-day in this county. The county manager, that's why he was hired. Do we ask questions? Yes. But a snapshot is what we have when someone calls. He has the whole movie. He has the whole movie. He knows things that we don't know and shouldn't know and other people don't. I'm just saying, in love and professionally, please give us a chance to work. That's all we ask. We didn't get here in 60 minutes or less, and we're not going to get out of this. We got a lot of work to do, and we're depending on the staff that work in this county and the citizens that live here to help us. Just let us work. Help us to work. And when we make a mistake, we will let you know. And we will clean it up. We're not human. No, we are human. We are not perfect, and neither are you. Now, I got to get back home and get my Santa Claus letters together because I hear he's going to be at the courthouse. And I got some things I want. With that said, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Y'all adjourn.